Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Sagittarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of January 2025. Just making sure I got it right there. I hope you're well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Before we begin, apologies if you can hear a rumbling in the background. I am on to the third, or is it fourth now? I'm not entirely sure. Day without power. Coming through the mains, at least anyway. There's been a lot of snowfall in the Central Balkans, and it's affected this whole area. We have no power, so there is a generator running in the background, which is the only reason that I'm actually able to be here and talk to you at this point. Go technology! This is very, very cool. But the the downside of that is that you may hear the generator in the background. So if you can, apologies, but it is what it is, right? Other things to tell you: if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is via the first link in the description box below. Right, let's get straight on with this, shall we, Sagittarius? Let's see what's going on for you. Could I have 3 cards for Sagittarius, please? Well, there's the first one. We have the Lovers card. That's Gemini in the Major Arcana. We'll have current energy for Sagittarius, please. We've got the Justice card on its side. Very interesting. And what's coming towards Sag, thank you, for January. We have the Magician. Now, interestingly enough, you've got the Hermit at the bottom of the deck. And the reason why this is interesting is because there aren't many signs for whom it's been all Major Arcana coming out. I can't remember off the top of my head who the other ones were, so forgive me. So I cannot tell you if there's a link there with something. I know that it's not Aries, and I know that it's not Leo, because I haven't done Leo yet. And I did Aries this morning, so I don't know. Maybe Scorpio. Maybe. Can't remember. Anyhow, this does suggest that there are a lot of energies at play on you during the course of January in a way that perhaps aren't quite as obvious for the other signs. We have the Hermit card at the bottom of the deck, suggesting that a certain level of introspection that we saw sort of characterising the month of December is extending into the month of January, and that's not really a surprise. I'm seeing that across all of the signs. It's just really funny, actually, because although December is that kind of more traditionally quieter part of the year in some respects, because we have holidays, at the end of them and all that kind of thing. Generally, with your happy birthday, by the way, for December or November, whenever it was. Anyway, because Sag season takes up a good 3 weeks of December. Generally, there's a kind of high vibe, big positivity. The holidays are on their way. Possibly quite a bit of socialising because of Christmas parties and things like that. Didn't really get the sense that there was much of that happening this year. Not in the same way as has happened in previous years. It was quite an introverted month, quite a quiet month, actually. And so, as I'm seeing for most of the signs, this more introverted kind of energy is continuing in January. And we're looking within for answers, not looking without. And I think that this is quite important, because if I was to come up with a word to describe 2025, in all likelihood, the best that I've come up with so far is twisty. Because I think there are going to be lots of events. Now, we are in a Mars retrograde, and so it should be understood that there isn't much that's going to change within our personal circumstances, certainly not during January. We may see that starting to change in February, but Mars is in retrograde until the 25th of February. So at the very least, I think things are just kind of plodding on the way that they are. But the benefit of the retrograde energy, and there is a benefit to it, is that it's a good time to go over lots of things. So when we talk about Mercury retrograde, often we're tying up loose ends with things, right? We're changing the way that we think. We're going back over it to make sure that what we think about a particular situation is right. We're going back over contrast. We're going back over all sorts of things. In the Mars retrograde, obviously, the focus is more on the action. It's like, what have we been doing and why? Is this the right move forwards? Do we need to plan to do something else? So I don't think it's an issue too much that our personal circumstances aren't changing that much. But I do not think that necessarily we're going to see that same energy out in the world. I think that it becomes really quite chaotic pretty much from day one, to be honest. And this twisty energy it's quite tricksy, I think. And if we get too wedded to the way that everything is being one way, we're quite likely going to get very disappointed very quickly. Anywho, that's kind of backstory to the way that I'm seeing 2025 kind of starting to play out even before we've got there. But there's something really quite significant happening with you here this month. Going within, having a look for important answers to things. I would say that this would be a point of heightened intuition that's coming off the back of internal processes that are changing. But look at what we've got going on here. Let's get some clarifiers out and then we'll speak to these directly. So we have the Two of Pentacles, clarifying the Lovers. We also have whatever the fuck that was that just fell on the floor. Let's have a look. Page of Swords. Interesting. Okay, tell me about the Justice card. There's a Justice card here on that side for Sagittarius. Page of Pentacles. Eight of Cups. Queen of Cups. And the Chariot. Tell me about the Magician. Why is this here, please? For Sagittarius, we have Justice reversed. And the Emperor on its side. I feel like this is quite a frustrating month for you, Sagittarius. I'm not going to lie. Now, we've got big energies at play on you. We can see that here very clearly. But I am uncomfortable with the position of Justice, and I am uncomfortable with this Emperor showing up on his side as well, because it feels a little bit like the best laid plans sort of going somewhat awry, I think is probably the best way to put it. So we've got the Lovers card in your recent past being, you know, it could be this morning when you got out of bed, but it could be anywhere up to about 6 weeks back from here. And the Lovers card is quite interesting. It's one of the two cards in the Major Arcana that speaks specifically to manifestation. Now, it has other meanings besides, but let's just stick with this one for now. One of them is the Lovers card. The other one is the Magician. Now, they both speak to manifestation, but they speak in a very different way. And I shall explain to you exactly what I mean by that. Because while there are cards in the tarot that overlap in terms of meaning, generally speaking, they're coming from a slightly different place and they're leading to a slightly different outcome. So for me, the Lovers card is about passive manifestation, and it's the kind of passive manifestation that comes when we get into alignment with the universe, what the universe is wanting from us, right? We don't resist anymore. We're exercising our free will and we're saying yes to the universe in whatever way that shows up in our life. Often it's to do with coming together with other people. It's about union and harmony. You know, we like those sorts of things. But when the Lovers card shows up, generally the universe has been trying to nudge us to something. And it's a nudge. It's not a tower that's forcing us to do something. It's a kind of, if you could just shift your ass across just a little bit that way and turn maybe 10 degrees to the left, you're going to spot something. And this is a little spot for you. This is a place where you can be. That's how I see the energy of the Lovers card. We've got it here with the Two of Pentacles and the Page of Swords. Now, the Two of Pentacles, it's quite a difficult card sometimes. It talks about, in the first instance for me, about coping, right? We've got somebody here who is attempting to juggle things, and it might be that you've had quite a bit on your plate, Sagittarius. It's trying to keep the wheels on everything moving, right? And it's like, oh, I've got all of these things that I need to do. I've got all of these tasks, these responsibilities, these jobs. I need to keep flicking this around to keep the cycle running, right? it's not a good time for me to try and drop the ball, sit down and have a rest at any point. And the interesting thing, once you start to acquire a number of tarot decks, and I have an obscene number, is that you begin to see where people interpret very specific cards very differently. And I think the Two of Pentacles across all decks is the one that tends to vary the most. We've got people sometimes who are depicted as, carrying off some sort of rather gymnastic feat, actually, and looking very pleased with themselves at the time. We have others who are in states of abject peril and looking like they're about ready to be washed off something. There's a kind of detachment with this one here. Dare I say it's something almost even performative about this Two of Pentacles. Because... And the reason why I say it's detached is because we've got you here trying to juggle all of the things, but right in the background, and it really is right in the background. It's not close. We can see that because of the scale of the ships that we see on the card here, right? There's a bit of a distance there. There's something roiling around emotionally that if we chose to focus on it, could be quite distracting, but we're not. We've got our back to it. We're not paying attention to that. We're just really trying to keep these pentacles up in the air. And then we have the Page of Swords. Now, Page of Swords ultimately is an information gatherer. And the purpose of the information gathering is mental expansion. Now, what I find interesting is that the universe is kind of nudging you. It's trying to get you to see something that you have not seen before. Then we have a card that has you with your back to your emotions, and then another card of this information kind of trickling in. I'm going to pull the Wild Unknown up here, because it sounds to me, just the way that the cards are showing up, that there's a little bit of a blind spot, and I'm not sure that it isn't a conscious blind spot, like as in consciously ignoring something that is troubling you. It's a Temperance card at the bottom of the deck. Tell me about this Two of Pentacles and Page of Swords, please. Interesting. Three of Swords. And the Empress on her side. So, the High Priestess is at the bottom of the deck, and whether you like it or not, Sagittarius, you're actually an incredibly sensitive being, and you can sort of tweak around and pick things up. It takes quite a lot of effort for you to ignore something. Now, obviously, you can pivot away from things, but we haven't got somebody who's pivoting here. Not in this card. We've got somebody who's trying to maintain a stance in one spot, trying to focus on the chop wood, carry water, but the water in the background is saying, you have some feelings about something. You're feeling some kind of way about something, right? Now that we have these cards here, it is entirely possible that your recent past, which will have been mostly taken up with a Mercury retrograde, right? Because at the time I'm recording this, we are actually still in the shadow period of the Mercury retrograde, that there has been some contact from someone, potentially, that is part of an old story of yours, possibly family members, possibly somebody related to your mother in some sort of way, right? It doesn't have to be related by blood, but right, the point of contact coming through, that's possible too. And it's kind of needled something that is not yet quite healed in you, that is asking for your attention. That's another way that I could see this playing out here. But the Empress, if we take a different view, we've got both of the, even just the way I've put these cards is really interesting. We've got both of these characters looking down at this Three of Swords. Now, the Page of Swords wants to know the quality of the information. He wants to know what it is. The Two of Pentacles guy is going like, I don't have the time. I don't have the spoons. I don't have the capacity to be looking at this yet, whatever this is. And the Empress on her side is quite a curious expression of, but there's something seeded here. There's something gestating here. There's something that's slowly going to be pushing itself into your awareness. And I think maybe this is what you know. You know that it's coming. You're just not quite ready to deal with it yet. So when we come into your current energy, we've got the Justice card on its side. And that's the bit that I'm a bit uncomfortable about, in addition to this over here, because what we have potentially is a karmic collision. I was going to say karmic reckoning, but I feel like that's got some pejorative overtones to it. Let's say a karmic collision. Not quite yet ready to show itself to its fullest extent yet, but certainly getting ready for it, right? So when the Justice card is in the upright, and this is representative of the sign of Libra, what we have is balance, equilibrium. We have justice being served. We have this sense that everything is as it's supposed to be. When it shows up in the reverse, generally speaking, we have a state of injustice occurring, right? Where we have someone who is perhaps being deceitful. We have someone who's perhaps spreading lies, spreading gossip, trying to seed things that are unpleasant in other people's heads. That is possible. Or we could have the consequences of our actions coming back to visit us in some sort of meaningful way, right? The fact is, though, with it appearing on its side here, it feels like it's an energy that's active but not yet really revealing itself. That's what I want to say about this. And that Page of Pentacles then being rendered somewhat useless in his ability to either decide, what the value of this situation is or what there isn't. Am I going to invest in this? Am I going to create more pentacles off the back of this? He's sort of sitting in abeyance, waiting for there to be some sort of action that is moving one way or the other with something. But whether the Justice card is in the upright or in the reverse, there is some aspect of karma that is at play, or just its presentation at all, right? It's saying that there's some sort of karmic wheel that is turning. And whether you know it or not, there are a series of events that have been put in motion that will show you what the end result of this is in not too short order. Now, when you combine that with the idea that the universe has been trying to nudge you to look at something that you haven't been looking at, and now suddenly there's this karmic collision course that's been initiated. I could see why you might be feeling a little bit antsy. Now, you may not have put these particular words to the feeling that you've been having, but where everything is very airy here, and we've got water in the background. Just realised you can't even see what I'm putting at. We've got water in the background, but it's really not playing a central role. When we come into your current energy, we've got actually water coming in front and centre. These emotions that you've been attempting to sidestep, possibly, really starting to come to the fore. Now, it's a curious combination of cards because we've got double Cancer here, and we've got, this is a Pisces card here. The Eight of Cups is talking about emotions that no longer serve us. And because it's an 8, we are also talking about power. So we're talking about a way in which we can reclaim our power for ourselves by putting down things that do not belong to us anymore. I wonder if, for you, Sagittarius, this water in the background of the Two of Pentacles is part of what no longer serves you, which isn't really part of your story anymore. But the difficulty that you feel in looking at it directly is the thing that's kind of keeping it percolating in the background of your existence. Right? The more powerful thing to do would be to see it for what it is and then choose to walk away from it. The thing is that that's going to require considerable amount of effort from you in order to actively forgive and be compassionate to yourself as this is unfolding. Now, there is also the possibility that there is some, compassion and forgiveness that needs to be expressed towards another that may be playing a part in this story too. But it always starts with self. It always starts with us, and then it's able to move out to other people. Now, the Chariot card is about balance and alignment, just as the Lovers card in some ways is about balance and alignment, and the Justice card is about balance and alignment. We saw the Temperance card that was already sitting at the bottom of the deck when I picked it up for you. Balance and alignment. And I think there's something here that's kind of knocking your flow. And if it's not knocking your flow yet, it's possible that it's incoming, is the best way to put it. Now, tell me about this Queen of Cups and the Chariot. Yeah, so we've got the Five of Wands appearing here. That's pretty uncomfortable. Then we have the Two of Swords, the Five of Cups, the Eight of Swords, and the Temperance card with the Chariot now at the bottom of the deck. Yeah, I think the time that you have spent kind of sidestepping whatever this emotional matter is and whatever it represents to you is probably coming to an end. Whether or not it involves your mother or somebody connected to your mother, or whether it's something else, there is a historical quality to this. It does not feel like it's something that's occurred in the last month or so, that suddenly, pretty quick consequences are coming in from. There's something that feels like it's quite aged about this. So we have the possibility for conflict coming in, and this could be between you and another, but it actually could be some sort of internal conflict that's going on. And my sense would be that I would be leaning towards that on account of the Chariot appearing here and the Eight of Cups, actually, because these focus the attention very much on you, your internal balance, your internal alignment, and what it is that you choose to move away from, right? So some sort of internal conflict, which might be, I don't even want to really fucking look at this stuff. Why is it coming up now? And then we have the Two of Swords, which for me is always about the blind spot. And it's a blind spot that's been created by your mind to, in some way or another, protect you from the consequences of something. Now, we've got the Five of Cups here, which is a card, I regret to say, of loss and sadness, sometimes bitterness and resentment. It's a card of really difficult emotional energies that are in some way unstable. Now, when we've got so many cards that are talking about a need for balance and equilibrium for you, and then we've got a card coming up that is pointing to some sort of instability, we can see how the universe is just kind of trying to pincer you towards focusing on whatever this is and taking the time to think about it entirely differently, so that you can then alchemize this situation, as is your superpower, Sagittarius. Release it, let it go, turn it into something else. I think the imagery is quite interesting here. We've got this chrysalis, and there's a butterfly in there that is afraid to spread its wings, because if it does, it's going to pierce itself on all of this stuff here. But the question of whether these swords actually exist, or whether these are, this is a particular mindset that has been created by a need not to see a particular thing. It's hard to say. But then we get this same shape replicated here. Both of these in their own way speaking to transformation, rebirth. Right? We've got a chrysalis. This was a caterpillar at some point. It's turning into a butterfly, but it's kind of a little bit afraid to spread its wings. And then here we have the stork delivering the baby. Right? This is literal rebirth. But there's an alchemization of the situation that needs to occur in order for this to happen. Now we've got water and fire depicted on the Temperance card, which happens a lot. There's always water on there somewhere, because although it is a fire card, it's a Sagittarius card, right? So it's fire element. The water, the emotion, it's a really important part of the process, and turning what is painful into something that is making you wiser, making you grow, helping you get over adversity. I mean, this is the nature of the alchemy that we are asked to perform on ourselves over and over again. if you're not resonating with this situation just yet, I don't think it's very far away. I would also point out that January is one of those months that feels like it's about 76 weeks long. So there's a lot of things that can happen in January. You might find yourself at some point going, fuck me, it's the third week in January. Is it really only been 2 weeks since this happened or whatever? Because it feels like there's a lifetime going on here. Now, nothing that's happening here is supposed to make you feel victimized, right? What we're doing is, I think, actually a really, really deep spiritual purge, definitely a deep emotional purge, that is allowing you to right yourself again, because whatever it is that is kind of festering away in the background here, it's reached its expiry date. It's asking to be released. It's asking to be acknowledged and let go. And you can't let it go until you acknowledge it. And this is the issue that I'm seeing playing out here for you. Now, when we get into what the majority of January holds for you, we have the Magician card, which is generally speaking quite a good energy, and it is that more active manifestation versus the passive manifestation of the Lovers card. In this card, we have our will influencing a situation in combination with the resources that we have available, in this case the Ace of Swords, the Ace of Pentacles, the Ace of Cups and the Ace of Wands. And it's for the Magician to put these together in the right ratios to try and manifest what it is that they want to see moving forwards. But what feels difficult here is the fact that the Justice card is in the reverse and this Emperor card is on its side. I feel like this is an effort to try and control the situation rather than to process it, release it and let it go. There was a phrase that just occurred to me a minute ago and I can't even remember what it was. Would have made a really good fucking title for the video actually, but it's gone. I can't remember what it is. You know, there's a generally speaking, the Emperor is quite a good character, and he's not showing up in a terrible way, right? Because the Emperor reversed is generally, well, can be all sorts of things, but it's generally more of a shadowy presentation of the Emperor. But then you can see that in the upright sometimes too. The fact that it's here and it's sideways, so it's not really active, not obviously, but it's doing something, and it feels like it's doing something that isn't awesome. I don't know. It feels a little bit like there's a huge knock in January. No, I'm not talking like a knock at the door. I'm talking like a knock to your confidence, a knock to your sense of self, a knock to the extent to which you feel like you're in control of your circumstances. And I don't know why that would be, other than the universe is saying that it's time. Now the Justice reversed. We've got the High Priestess there. Justice reversed. We've got the Five of Pentacles in reverse. Interesting. And we've got the Queen of Pentacles on her side. We've also got the Judgment card at the bottom of the deck. Now, this is a very intense energy, Sagittarius. This is really intense. Justice is one of those cards, and there are three for me, where when they show up in combination, it speaks to a really big karmic adjustment. So those cards are Justice, Judgment and the Wheel of Fortune. Now when any of those show up in combination, right, we're extrapolating up the level of energy that is involved in this. It's not just justice on its own, it's justice squared, right? It's not just judgment on its own, it's judgment squared. It's not just the Wheel of Fortune on its own, it's Wheel of Fortune squared. When you get all three of them showing up together, then it's like, you know, grab a hold of your britches, because this is going to be this is going to be intense. There's something really, really positive that is coming out of this, Sagittarius. But I think it's really, really important that you don't try and control this. Now, that means controlling a narrative. It's very important for you not to do that. I wonder if there's something coming to light. Now, we've all skeletons in our cupboards, right? But this is something that seems to be affecting you on a deeply emotional level. Like there's something that's not sitting right with your conscience. And it may be something that you don't really even consciously think about that much anymore, but it's something that's kind of rattling around in your subconscious, and the universe is saying it's time that it needs to go, because there's something really, really big happening here. And when something really, really big happens, like sometimes that can feel like a massive fucking kick in the teeth, but ultimately it takes us to something that is a much more pure expression of what we are, right? Sometimes it can trebuchet us into individuation that we could not have achieved in any other way, or it makes us have to be radically honest with ourselves that sometimes we have not been the heroes in our own story, that we have indeed made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And there seems to be a call to atonement happening here. Now, what's interesting is the complexity of what seems to be the backstory to whatever this is. We've got the Queen of Pentacles there, which is Capricorn energy, and it's about self-care, it's about self-investment, it's about self-worth. She's on her side. We've got the Five of Pentacles, which is in reverse, which is really quite interesting because it's talking about where we meet our own basic needs, or in fact, where we don't, right? But there's also contained within that a fear of poverty, a fear of lack, an experience of poverty, of lack. And that doesn't have to be in the material, that can be in the spiritual, the emotional, the mental. It can speak to abandonment issues, it can talk to that sense of being rejected by those who should be protecting you, right? I'm trying to cover a lot of bases here because there is something really, really complex that is sitting at the root of all of this. Now, the Justice card reversed could speak to an unfair judgment being applied to you, or it could be and if it is, that's something that's going to just work itself out with the fullness of time, right? It's not something that you have to leap into and try and control. Or it could be the consequences of your actions kind of catching up to you at a point where you are conscious enough to be able to recognize it for what it is. And it is that thing that's been bubbling around in your subconscious for the longest time. You know, the High Priestess is many things. She's a conduit. She brings things through. But she also rules secrets. She rules things that are not spoken of, because to all intent and purposes, the High Priestess is a silent figure. She simply observes and allows things to move through her. Now, the Five of Pentacles in reverse could indicate a point where you acted potentially in your own best interests and not in somebody else's. Or in your own best interests to the cost of someone else. That's possible. And now here comes a point where maybe somebody's calling out on you on it. There are lots of different ways that this could play out, and honestly, I don't think that this is going to make true sense to you up until the end of January. But there's a rebirth moment that's going on here. There's a balancing that needs to be undertaken at a higher level by you, because you are now ready to do it. That is purging out a lot of the dark from the past. And it's going to require you to be radically honest. It's going to require you to be fully on board with what the universe is trying to give you here, as uncomfortable as it may seem. There's a lot here that's working on faith and trust rather than evidence and protestations, you know? Now, it could be that it's something that's coming out about, you know, an injustice that was served upon you at some point in the past. But again, the advice is the same. Don't try and control the narrative on this one. I wouldn't even necessarily speak too much on this one. I feel like this is very much an internal process for you. And so if you're, you know, if you're concerned about judgment, other people's judgment, just know that, you know, this is not going to last for long. And that there's something very, very important that's happening internally as a result of this. Like I said, an enormous purge of past stuff, whether it's past karma, past emotional stuff, past trauma. It's all getting purged out if you allow it to happen. Now, if you try and control the narrative, and I notice that both of these cards are sitting sideways here. I feel like if you try and control the narrative here, then this is what's going to happen with the Queen of Pentacles. And actually you're going to get stuck in a bit of a loop. If you could try and control any of this aspect whatsoever, rather than leaning into you, you know, whether somebody's calling you out as a victim or a perpetrator, there's a certain stoicism that I feel like I would like to advise you to adopt this month. Try and cut out the noise as far as possible and find time to be with yourself while you allow yourself to kind of explore where the edges of this is. This is really interesting, Sagittarius. I'm going to go to the extended now. You're very welcome to join me over there if you would like to. If not, that's fine. Let this play out. Don't be afraid. Let this play out. And if there is something that you are to, you know, be accountable for at some point, then that's fine. But don't try and jump the gun too much on this, right? Let it play out. Very interesting. All right. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.